Namaskar friends, welcome to the channel JIV and CIV Made Simple. So if you are giving examination for certification program for foreign exchange facility for individual conducted by IIBF. So in this particular video, we are going to discuss memory based question which were asked on 27th August 2025. So this is a set of almost 20 to 30 question, and I will explain each and every option. This will help you see what is the level of the paper, which are the important topic from where questions are being asked, and also since I will explain each and every option, so you will get to know 4 to 5 different concepts from a single MCQs. So I will request you to please try the question yourself, apply your knowledge, and then see the explanation. Through this methodology, you can take the maximum benefit of this particular video. So let's get started with our very first question. The question is, under the Indo-Nepal Remittance Facility Scheme, in short we call it INRF, Indo-Nepal Remittance Facility Scheme or INRF, which of the following statement is correct regarding the remittance charges for amount above 50,000 when sent through SBI? Options they have given that NSBL account holder are charged 1.5 rupees per 1000 rupees with a minimum of 150 rupees and maximum of 3000. Option B, non-NSBL beneficiary are charged 1 rupees per 1000 rupees with a minimum of 75 rupees and maximum of 1500. Option C, NSBL account holder are charged 1 rupees per 1000 rupees with a minimum of 75 rupees, maximum of 1500. Option D, walk-in customer are charged a flat rupees 95 for all the transaction above 50,000 rupees regardless of the beneficiary bank. These are the 4 options that they have given. So friends, let's get started. So this question is asking about remittance facility under the Indo-Nepal Remittance Facility Scheme, right? And you know it very well that amount sent is more than, you can see amount sent is more than 50,000 specifically through SBI. So the key focus of the question, there are 3 key focus. First thing is amount exceed 50,000 rupees. First thing. Second point is charge structure. This is the key focus. And the third point is difference between NSBL and non-NSBL beneficiary. These are the 3 key focus of the question. Now let's clear the concept in the simple word possible. So under the INRF scheme, right? Under this scheme called INRF scheme, SBI charges different remittance fee. SBI charges different remittance fee on where the beneficiary hold their account in Nepal, right? Where their beneficiary hold their account in Nepal. So there are 2 clear category. The first one is NSBL account holder, so which means Nepal State Bank Limited holder and Nepal SBI Bank Limited holder. And second case is NSBL, non-NSBL account holder, right? Any other Nepal bank. So that's called any other Nepal bank. So see, for amount exceeding 50,000 rupees, the charges are not flat. If the amount exceeds 50,000 rupees, charges are not flat. They are calculated per 1000 rupees remitted. They are calculated per 1000 rupees remitted, and they have a minimum and maximum limit. They have minimum and maximum limit. So let's check each option logically. If you look at the first option, it says that charge for NSBL account holder, it is saying 1 rupees per 1000 rupees, right? And minimum charge is 75 rupees, maximum charge is 1500 rupees. That matches exactly with option number C. See, charge 1 rupees per 1000 rupees, minimum of 75, maximum of 1500. Exactly. This is the correct one. If you look at the option number A, it mentioned 1.50 rupees per 1000 rupees for NSBL account. This rate is for non-NSBL account. If the question was asking about non-NSBL, then this would be the answer, right? Not NSBL. And for NSBL, the charges is low because they are the account holder of the Nepal State Bank. That's why the charges is low, which is 1 rupees per 1000 rupees. So option number A is wrong. What about B? B describe correct limit. If you look at the B, yes, it described the correct limit that non-NSBL beneficiary are charges, but apply them to non-NSBL beneficiary, which is incorrect, right? Then if you look at the option number D, walk-in customer. So see, flat fee of rupees 95 allowed to lower limit and a specific case, not for remittance above 50,000. Right. So the correct answer is option number C. Please understand, NSBL account holder, they are charged 1 rupees per 1000 rupees with a minimum of 75 and maximum of 1500 for remittance above 50,000. So one trick to remember, let me give you a trick to remember. So the golden rule trick is like this. Own bank cheaper, other bank costlier. So NSBL, so it is own SBI Nepal Bank, right? On SBI Nepal Bank cheaper, so it is 1 rupees per 1000 rupees transaction. And if it is non-NSBL, it is 1.5 rupees per 1000 rupees transaction, right? So NSBL is smaller number, non-NSBL bigger number. So what we learned from this question is that charges above 50,000 are slab based. As you can see, there is no fixed charge, rather it is slab based charge. First point. Second point is NSBL customer always get lower charge. So NSBL, Nepal State Bank Limited customer always get lower charge. Examiner love to interchange NSBL and non-NSBL, right? So what we learned from that is that if you seek Indo Nepal plus SBI plus above 50,000 rupees, in that case immediately think 1 rupees per 1000 rupees charges. That's all for this question. Now let's look at question number 2. Question number 2, under FEMA regulation, in which of the following situation is a passenger required to file a CDF with Indian customer on arrival? Indian customs on arrival. So very good question it is. In which situation does a passenger arriving in India have to file a CDF? So our focus is purely on arrival in India and foreign exchange bought into the country. So option they have given, when the total foreign exchange bought is in $8,000, of which $4,500 is in currency note. Option B, when the total foreign currency bought is in $12,000, including $4,000 in the currency note. Option C, when the foreign currency note alone exceeds $5,000, even if total foreign exchange is less than $10,000. Option D, when the passenger wishes to reconvert unspent INR into foreign currency before the departure. These are the 4 options that they have provided. So let's get started. First of all, let's understand the core concept in simple language. See, what happened under FEMA, right? And also FERA, you can say. So there are 2 clear situations where filing CDF become compulsory. When it become compulsory to file CDF. What are 2 situations? Let's have a look. The first thing is that passenger must file currency declaration form if any one of these limits is crossed. What is the first limit? Total first limit is, foreign exchange. Total foreign exchange, if it exceed $10,000, or foreign currency note, right, alone it exceed $5,000. See, these are the either of these 2 conditions are met. Foreign exchange greater than $10,000, foreign currency note greater than $5,000, right? If either of any of these limits is crossed, then passenger must file CDF. Foreign exchange greater than $10,000, right, and foreign currency note $5,000. It is an or condition, not and condition. So cross any one limit, CDF become mandatory. Note 5,000, exchange 10,000. Now let's look at the option. If you look at the option number A, it says total foreign currency 8,000, currency note 4,500. No. Both are below the FEMA limits. No CDF is required. What about option B? Option B, foreign exchange $12,000 including 4,000. See, from foreign exchange point of view, it is correct. You have to fill the CDF. But cash is just $4,000. So CDF will be required here because total exceed 10,000. But exam prefer the option that clearly and independently state a specific trigger. So it can be answered. What about C? Foreign currency note exceeding 5,000 and foreign currency exchange is less than 10,000. This option directly match, FEMA rule. Even if total is below 10,000 but foreign currency note exceeding. So BC is the most appropriate answer. And D is saying when the passenger wishes to reconvert unspent INR. See, what D is all about? CDF is not related to import of foreign exchange on arrival. CDF is related to what, CDF is related to import of forex on arrival. CDF is related to import of forex on arrival. It is not related to reconversion of INR or departure formality. So this option is irrelevant. So super memory trick is to remember is here is that just remember this 10 just let me write it down. So the super memory trick is 10-5 rule. What does it say? 10 for total, 5 for cash, right? It says 10 for total and 5 for cash. So total foreign friends, if you are looking for one-stop solution for your preparation for certificate examination in foreign exchange facility for individual, you can check out our course on our app JIV and CIV Made Simple. Link is provided in the description section. In this particular course, you will see there is a separate folder for theory and MCQ PDF and a separate folder for previous year question. If you look at the theory and MCQ folder, so it has been divided into 7 separate folder. Each folder consists of part, like part 1. Inside each folder, you will get theory PDF and MCQ PDF. Similarly, in part 2, you will get theory PDF. See, in part 2, you will see there are different sub part like unit 2, unit 3, unit 4, unit 5, unit 6, and so on. So it consists of almost 1000 plus MCQs in the PDF format, and also in addition to that they provide you previous year exam question. If you want to get access to those, many aspirants have cracked the paper using our material. You can get more detail by WhatsApping me on the number shown on the screen. So this is the number you can WhatsApp me on. Right now let's look at the next question, question number 3 of our previous year memory based question. So this question is about under FEMA rule, what must a resident Indian repatriate the sale? Sorry, when must an Indian resident repatriate the sale proceed of a foreign ESOP sale to India? So this question is testing your knowledge of when and how Indian resident must repatriate. When and how Indian resident must repatriate. So when I say repatriate, it means bring back to India, right? It means back to India. Right. So we are looking at when and how an resident Indian must repatriate the sale proceed of a foreign ESOP under the FEMA rule. So there are some keywords here. So the first keyword is resident Indian. Let me highlight it. Let me write it down. So the first keyword is resident Indian. Right. Second thing is foreign ESOP share. Right. Foreign ESOP share. Third is the sale proceed. Right. Sale proceed. And fourth is the repatriation timing. That is what is asked. So options they have given that repatriation must be done immediately and within the prescribed day based on the percentage of shareholding. Option B, repatriation is required upon receipt and within fixed timeline depending on the size of the employee's foreign holding. C says that repatriation must occur without delay and no later than the allowed period linked to the employee equity interest. And D says that repatriation become compulsory on receipt and must follow the time limit applicable to the level of share ownership. So basically, under FEMA, right on, let me tell you the concept first. What is the concept? Under FEMA, whenever a resident India still foreign ESOP share, the money received, whatever money he has received, right, from the sale cannot be kept abroad. You cannot keep that abroad indefinitely. Once the sale proceed are received, that means money is received. So they must be repatriated to India. They have to bring back to India, right? So you were NRI, now you come back to India. You were holding, or suppose you are resident Indian, not talking about you are resident Indian. You are holding some foreign ESOP, and you have sold to the ESOP. You have got the money, right? So you have to bring back those money back to India, right? And the time limit depends on the percentage of shareholding. So that depends on percentage of shareholding. Please understand. So it is a two-step rule. First of all, you receive the sale proceed and bring them to India within the prescribed timeline. Now you may ask me, what is the timeline? Let me tell you. See, that depends on the ESOP shareholding. So one side I am writing ESOP shareholding, and other side I am writing maximum repatriation time. So if its shareholding is more than 10%, right? So in that case, 90 days. Within 90 days, you have to repatriate. And if it is less than 10%, then 180 days. So these timeline apply after the receipt of fund. So from where this day will be counted? From the day refund is received. Receipt of fund. If the employee reinvest abroad in the permitted asset within the same period, in that case repatriation is not required, because whatever amount he got, he is reinvesting. In that case, it is not required. So, and you can credit the fund to NRE account or FCNR account. This you can do even without converting to INR. So what is the correct answer to this question? If you look at the option number A, it is talking about immediately. You can see the word you have used. It must be done immediately. And vague percentage rule. FEMA allow a specified date, not instant repatriation. So option A is wrong. What about B? that it is required upon receipt and within fixed timeline exactly, depending on the size of the employee foreign holding exactly. So how much size? B is the correct answer, because it mentioned the receipt first. First of all, it mentioned that it should be received, and then it also mentioned the fixed timeline. Obviously, there is a fixed timeline of 90 days and 180 days. And it also linked timeline to the T about the trigger point. Right. So D is also wrong. So the final correct answer is option number B. Right. So one trick to remember, I'm giving you just trick to remember it like this. You can remember it like this. 1090 less 180 rule. What it means? That 10% or more ESOP holding, then 90 days. Right. If the ESOP holding is 10% or more, then 90 days. And if it is less than 10%, then 180 days. So one line recall: big holding short time, a small holding long time. So key revision and takeaways is that it only apply to the resident Indian. Please note it down. This thing only apply to the resident Indian. Trigger point is receipt of sale proceed. Right, whatever sale proceed you must receipt first. And time limit depends on shareholding percentage. NRE FCNR credit is valid repatriation. Right. Now let's look at the next question. Question is, when an FCNR deposit mature on Saturday or Sunday and is renewed on the next working day, how is interest for the weekend period treated as per the RBI permitted renewal rule? Very good question. See, the question is, this question tests how interest is treated whenever FCNR deposit mature on a non-working Saturday and Sunday and the depositor renew it on the next working day. So the key focus area is, the first one is the FCNR deposit, second one is maturing on weekend or Saturday or Sunday and renewal on the next working day, and the fourth is RBI permitted renewal rules or interest treatment. Option they have given that interest for the weekend is paid only if the renewal occur within the allotted overdue window fixed by the bank. B, interest for the weekend is denied entirely unless the depositor withdraw the fund without renewal. Option C, interest for the weekend is credited fully at the contracted rate when renewal is carried out promptly by the depositor. Option D, interest for the weekend is provided only in line with the bank renewal policy applicable to overdue FCNR deposit. These are the four options. Now let's first of all understand the core concept. What is the core concept here? Let's see. This FCNR deposit is maturing, right? So, and interest, so what happened, that interest, it is stop on the maturity date. Interest stop at the maturity date. And if this maturity date fall on Saturday or Sunday and the depositor comes on Monday and renew the deposit, the Saturday Sunday gap does not get automatically FCNR interest. So this particular gap will not get FCNR interest. Please understand. RBI treat this period as an overdue period. So what RBI does? This period is treated like an overdue period and it is not a continuation of FCNR. So what we learned is that, what is the RBI permitted rule? That treatment of weekend, that the Saturday Sunday period is treated like overdue. Whatever period is between Saturday and Sunday, they are treated like an overdue period. Interest will not be paid. Right. So why RBI allow bank to do? What RBI allow bank to do? In that case, if renewal is done within 14 days of maturity, suppose renewal is done within the 14 days of maturity, so our bank may pay interest for the overdue delay. Bank can pay interest. That interest will be at the bank applicable overdue deposit rate, not at the FCNR rate. And if it is renewal is done after, renewal is done after 14 days. So only simple overdue interest may be paid. Simple overdue interest may be paid. No backdated FCNR interest. No backdated FCNR interest. And if the funds are withdrawn before completing 1 year, if the funds are withdrawn before completing 1 year, no interest at all. Right. FCNR minimum maturity is 1 year. You know it very well. Right. So if that depends on renewal. Renewal is within 14 days of maturity, bank may pay interest for the overdue date. If the renewal is after 14 days, only simple overdue interest may be paid, no backdated FCNR. Now let's look at this particular question. If you see the option number A, it says that it talks about, interest for weekend is paid only if renewal occur within the allowed overdue window fixed by the bank. It talks about allowed window, but does not clearly state overdue interest lodging. That's why it is wrong. B says that interest is denied completely. Wrong. Overdue interest may be paid. C says that full FCNR contracted rate is paid, never allowed for overdue period. What about D? Yes, D is the correct one. Because, interest for weekend is provided only in line with the bank renewal policy applicable to the overdue FCNR deposit. So it recognizes weekend as overdue period, matches RBI permissive approach. It correctly says interest depends on bank overdue policy. That is exactly what RBI allows. So option D is correct. So easy memory trick to remember is like this. Please understand. You can think of this weekend as overdue rule. Right. FCNR does not automatically earn interest after maturity. FCNR does not automatically earn interest after maturity, even if it is Saturday and Sunday. So no working day, no FCNR rate. Simple rule. Right. So FCNR interest stop on maturity date. Weekend date are treated like an overdue period. Interest, if any, is at the bank overdue rate, not FCNR rate. And renewal within 14 days, possible overdue interest. Withdrawal after 1 year, zero interest. Withdrawal before 1 year, zero interest. Please understand this rule about FCNR, very, very important. And same thing has been mentioned here. So this PDF is also applicable, is also provided in our course, right? Foreign exchange for individual course. Now friends, the question is, under FEMA regulation, how may NRI repatriate sale proceed of inherited asset from India through an RO account in a financial year? Repatriation is allowed up to $1 million per year with full documentation and applicable tax compliance. B says repatriation is permitted for any amount per year if supported by inheritance proof and tax certification. C says repatriation is restricted to $2.5 lakh US per year once the inheritance proceed is completed. D says repatriation is allowed only with the prior RBI approval, even when tax, succession paper and CA certificate are available. So this question is testing your understanding of the FEMA rule on how much money can NRI can repatriate from India when the money is from sale of inherited asset routed through NRO account. So there are some keywords. The first keyword is NRI, inherited asset, NRO account, financial year limit, and repatriated outside India. So let's first of all clear the concept. Let's understand the concept first. So what does the concept say? That whenever NRI inherit asset in India, suppose there is an NRI, and what he is doing? He is inheriting what? Inheriting asset. Where? In India. For example, he may inherit house, he may inherit land, he may inherit fixed deposit, or he may inherit security, and later sell those assets. After inheriting, he is selling those assets. The sale proceeds are normally credited to the NRO account. You know it very well. Now FEMA clearly allowed NRI to take that money outside India, but only up to a prescribed yearly limit with proper documentation. So under the FEMA rule 2016, NRI OCI can repatriate up to maximum of how much? The maximum limit is $1 million per financial year from the NRO account. Or from the sale of inherited asset without prior RBI approval, and all the document and tax compliance must be completed. So he must submit the proof of inheritance, proof of tax payment, CA certificate. See, what are the things you have to submit? You have to submit the proof of inheritance. So the correct answer to this question is option number A. See, some document that has to submitted. Let me show you. Yes, proof of inheritance, tax payment evidence, CA certificate, form 16A, form 15CA. What about option B? It says that repatriation is permitted for any amount per year. It says any amount per year. This is incorrect. Clearly, there is a limit of $1 million per year. C is wrong because it confuses with LRS, which is $2.5 lakh. LRS apply only to resident Indian. It does not apply to NRI. And D is also wrong because prior RBI approval is not required within the $1 limit. So friends, what we learned from this question is that, inheritance, there is a rule called 1 million rule. Please understand. For inheritance, there is a rule that is called 1 million rule. Right. So NRI plus inherited asset plus NRO is equal to $1 million per financial year. Never confuse with LRS. LRS is $2.5 lakh. That is for resident Indian. Right. Please understand. This $2.5 lakh is for, resident Indian. And this thing we are talking about is inheritance remittance. How much inheritance remittance they can do. That is $1 million. So it applies to NRI and OCI only. Root is NRO account. Inherited asset in India is the source. Limit is $1 million per financial year. I hope it is crystal clear now. Now, let's look at the next question. Yes, very good question. Under FEMA regulation, how may an NRI use NRO NRE fund for purchasing property in India? So the options they have given that both NRO and NRE fund may be used for permitted property purchase through normal banking channels. Option B, that is asked that, only NRE fund may be used for property acquisition while NRO fund cannot be utilized. Option C, neither NRO nor NRE fund may be used unless prior permission is granted by the Reserve Bank. Option D, both NRO and NRE fund may be used only when the property involved is agriculture land or farmhouse. Very good question. So under FEMA rule, RBI allow NRI to invest in property in India, but with some clear condition. What is the condition? Let's have a look at the condition. So the condition says that an NRI can use money from both NRE account or NRO account to purchase residential property or to purchase commercial property in India. There is no restriction on using NRO and NRE fund as long as payment is made through normal banking channel. It may include check, it may include transfer, it may include DD, etc. So the moment you see purchase of residential or commercial property, remember NRO fund allow, NRE fund allow. Also very important is that no RBI permission is needed. You don't need RBI permission. But NRI can buy any number of residential property or commercial property. But see, NRI cannot purchase agriculture land, again plantation property, third farmhouse. NRI cannot purchase because this can be inherited, this can be gifted, but not purchased. Inheritance is allowed, gifted is allowed, right? Gift is allowed, but not purchase. So if you look at the option, first of all, option number A, it says that both NRO and NRE fund may be used for permitted property purchase through normal banking channel. Exactly. Only NRE fund may be used for property acquisition. C, it is wrong. NRO fund are also permitted. So B is wrong. C says that prior RBI permission is required. No, completely wrong. RBI permission is not required for NRI OCI to buy residential or commercial property. D says that agriculture land or farmhouse. C, NRI cannot purchase agriculture land or farmhouse at all. So the final answer is NRI are permitted to use both NRO and NRE account fund to purchase residential or commercial property in India through the normal banking channel. Okay, so what are allowed? RC allowed. So one memory trick I can give you. RC allowed, APF not allowed. So RC means, residential and commercial property allowed. APF means agriculture, plantation and farmhouse not allowed. So what we learned from this discussion is that NRI can buy residential and commercial property. Payment can be done via NRO, NRE, FCNR account. No RBI permission is needed. Agriculture land, plantation, farmhouse is prohibited. Purchase only through banking channel. Next question. Under FEMA rule, how much commission can be remitted to an overseas consultant for assisting in the sale of property in India? And under what condition does RBI approval become necessary? So very good question it is. Let's break this down into two simple parts. How much commission is allowed and when is RBI approval required? So can be break down into two simple parts. How much commission? First question. And second thing is, when is RBI approval needed? When is RBI approval needed? So let's talk about the first part. How much commission limit under FEMA? The option they have given up to $25,000 or 5% of the inward remittance, whichever is higher, with RBI approval required only if this limit is exceeded. B says up to $25,000 or 5% of the property value, whichever is lower, per transaction with RBI approval required for all the NRI related commission. C says only up to $25,000 per transaction, irrespective of the sale value, with no RBI approval required. And D say up to 5% of the commission invoice value per transaction, with RBI approval mandatory for both resident and NRI in every case. So the question have two parts. First of all, how much commission is allowed and when is the RBI approval needed? So first of all, let's understand the basic concept. Let's talk about the commission limit. See, under FEMA, especially, current account transaction. Under FEMA current account transaction rule, schedule number 3, India allow resident and NRI to pay commission to, see what happened, that under this FEMA current account transaction rule, right, India allow either it is resident or it is NRI, right, to pay commission. They can pay commission to foreign or overseas agent or consultant for helping in sale of property in India. The maximum commission is allowed is $25,000 or 5% of inward remittance, whichever is higher. So this means you compare $25,000 or 5% of inward sale money received from buyer. Whichever amount is higher become the permitted limit. Now you may ask me, what is this inward remittance? What is inward remittance? Please understand. So inward remittance means total sale proceed received from the buyer into India. For example, let me give you example of inward remittance. Let's suppose that sale proceed received is $6 lakh. Right. So what is 5% of 6 lakh? That is nothing but 30,000. Right, dollar. So this $30,000 exceed $25,000. So commission allowed is $30,000. That is what inward remittance. That is what I am telling you. Either up to 25,000 or 5% of the inward remittance, whichever is higher. So in this case, you can see if you compute the sale proceed is $6 lakh. If you compute 5%, that is $30,000. So you have to compare this $30,000 with $25,000. Which is larger? $30,000 is larger. So this $30,000 commission is allowed. Now, the first part question is answered. The second part of the question is RBI approval is required? Do we need RBI approval for this? The answer is very simple rule. No RBI approval. As long as the commission is within the limit, then no RBI approval. But if approval is necessary when the commission exceed $25,000 or 5%, whichever is higher, that is no confusion. And what about resident versus NRI? Does it matter? Does it matter? Resident versus NRI. Let's quickly see. If the seller is a resident, commission is remitted under LRS. See, if it is resident, so the commission will be remitted under liberalized remittance scheme. Amount is counted within the $2.5 lakh limit of LRS. And if the seller is NRI, commission can be paid from NRO sale proceed. Because for NRI, you cannot do the LRS. For NRI, it is done through NRO sale proceed. And FEMA commission still limit will apply. So, what about TDS? TDS apply for non-resident agent, typically 20%. And GST may apply. There are some document you have to fill like Form E2, purpose code, consultant invoice, etc. etc. If you look at the option number A, it is perfect. It is perfectly correct. Option number B is wrong. Because it says 5% of the property value. No. Property value has nothing to do with that. It is all about inward remittance. What about C? C is about, it says that no RBI approval needed even if the limit is exceeded. It is again wrong. Because RBI approval is compulsory once the limit is crossed. And D, it says that RBI approval is mandatory in all the case. It is completely wrong. RBI approval is required only exceeding the permitted limit. So the memory trick is that 25 or 5. Take higher, approval letter. 25 means $25,000. 5 means 5% of inward remittance. You have to choose higher of the two. And RBI approval is required only if you cross this limit. So friends, that is all about our this session. We have some more question available and the explanation of the same will be available in our paid course. For more detail, you can WhatsApp me on this particular number or you can check out the